Okay, how's everybody doing today? Okay, good. We're only a few days out from our first vacation of the year, so we're very, very close. Just a few things we need to take care of prior to that. What's happening tomorrow? Okay, you got your test. Okay, so it's going to have law of cosines, law of sines, know both formulas for the area of the oblique triangles we looked at, and it's only going to have material from graphing sine and cosine. Okay, graphing, the other four will not be on the test, but that homework is due when? That homework is going to be due Friday. Okay, so on Friday we'll come in, we'll take our happy minutes, we'll take care of the homework, and then I'll pass back the tests. We'll talk about any questions you may have, and more than likely we'll just have some downtime. I'm not going to worry about moving on. We'll just go ahead and stop. That'll be a great way to finish up before our break. As far as the test goes, don't forget you can use a what? You have a note card, okay, a 3x5 note card. Remember, it has to be a note card, not a piece of paper that you tore out and said it's close to 3x5, or even if you measure it, okay, it's got to be a note card. You can write anything you want on the front or the back. You just can't add anything to it, like stapling it or anything that'll fold out. Basically, anything that'll give you more writing space. You have the front and the back. Now, you can write anything on there you want you feel is going to help you during the test, but what do I recommend? That's it. What table? Okay, the side-side angle, the ambiguous case from the law of sines. All right, I have three problems on the test that are going to be tied directly to that. All right, so make sure you have that on there. Satish? We'll be here Friday. Then I would say either Friday morning or Friday during class, we'll take the test. What I'm recommending for people, if you know you're not going to be here, is you can either take it when we get back, but that's, over a week. Then conceivably you're not going to be looking at the material. You are going to be doing other things. I'm kind of recommending to people, if you won't be here both of those days, take it early so you don't fall into that situation. But, if that's all we can do, then, we'll just take it when we get back. All right. The only other thing I want to go ahead and mention today was because of something that happened this morning. And I know it's very near and dear to all of your hearts. Let's talk about expectations again. Okay, because some people are still not, unfortunately, living up to them. Okay, the reason, well, a couple of reasons why I decided to go ahead and talk about this today was because I had a couple of students this morning come in during tutorials, one of which wanted the code to the website because he had never been. Okay, which I guess it's a good thing that we're finally getting on the website, but we are almost done with the first semester and we are not yet on the website. Okay, so that is not taking care of business. Also, another thing that kind of happened was with this over here, the pockets that I have on the door. Now, this is not meant to be here in case you're absent. That's what the website is for. The website has all the notes, it has the videos, one of which I'm currently recording right now. So, it is your expectation if you are not here or if you're absent a lot, be going to the website. Now, you're not going to rely 100% on the website. My goal is that you go to the website, you go through the videos, you kind of look through the notes, so you kind of see what we were doing while you were gone. Then you come in during tutorials, and that's where I help you fill in the blanks. Okay, because it's going to be really, really difficult to try and teach an entire lesson that maybe took us 3 or 4 days in a 20-minute period, especially when there's other people coming in for tutorials. That's why the website is there. The reason I bring this up is because another student this morning decided to get a little bit of attitude with me when it comes to these copies. Now, you have to understand something. Every single time I go to the copy machine, these packets that I give you, so you don't have to write any notes, I have to make 160 copies because I have close to 150 pre-cal students in all together. Remember, I told you I was going to make a few extra, not a ton. So that means 160 copies of the notes, 160 copies of every assignment, 160 copies of every test, every quiz. Everything I give you, I've got to make 160 copies so that everybody has one. So I'm not going to double that to 300 so that you never have to visit the website. Okay? That's not what this is here for. Now, I understand if things come up, you get busy, maybe you're not able to go to the website once, that's fine. That's why I have these copies here. But I think people are becoming a little too dependent on those copies. It was, I believe, in this very class, in the second 6 weeks, there was a couple of students who got a little bit of attitude, got irritated with me because the copies had run out. I don't control that. Okay, and quite frankly, the fact that somebody is going to go ahead and do that, that's a lot of nerve. Okay, but that brings us back to this morning. The exact same thing happened. We had run out of copies, and the student is like, well, what do you expect me to do? Like, well, I expect you to take responsibility and go to the website. So I'm kind of over the whole thing. Okay, I'm very close to removing those extra copies, so that you're going to have no choice but to go to the website. Remember, I do this to try and help you out. And you have to understand, I've also been thinking, because for whatever reason, people have been giving me a hard time about the website. I'm not going to the website because. Well, because why? Well, because. That's not an answer. Okay? So I'm also very, very close to just removing the website altogether. That means there will be no notes posted, no videos recorded, nothing. There is no school policy that requires me to do this. Now, I hope I'm not coming across as a jerk, guys, but I've talked to you before about my expectations. And if that's the way it is, then so be it. I don't care. All right? There is nothing requiring me to do this. I do this because I'm trying to help you out. But if people are not going to use the website and then get attitude with me because they are not going to the website, that's just going to go away. Now, remember, we've talked about this before. I talked to you about expectations for after-school tutorials. And I said, folks, if people don't start following my expectations, it's going to go away. And what happened? There are no more after-school tutorials. I turn people away now who come in after school. Like, nope, not going to do it. You got to come in 7:45 to 8:05. Okay, I don't like doing it, but I was put in that position. We are now very close to this website going. And for the people who never go to the website, well, you're probably thinking, well, what does that matter to me? I never go to the website anyway. For the people who do go to the website, this is probably going to be a big issue because I will not be providing any notes for you if you're absent. I will not be doing that. You will solely be responsible for getting the notes from another student. You will have to copy everything yourself. Okay, so you have to kind of think about what that means if the website goes away. All right, now, I'm not singling you guys out. You are not the only class today that's getting this little speech. Every pre-cal IS class is going to get it, and I got one more to go. Okay? So please go to the website. Okay, if you are absent, that is your responsibility. If you are not going to the website and you decide to come in and get attitude with me because of that, I'm probably not going to respond very well. Okay, and I don't want to do that because I want you to respect me. I want to respect you. So I'm just saying, take care of business. We're young adults. In a few short years, you're going to be where? You're going to be in college. And, well, it is a whole different ball game. That is not just a saying, folks. I know that our school motto is college and career ready. I am not afraid to say this on tape. We do not get you ready for that. The policies we have in place are not preparing you for when you get to college, because you're going to meet some professors, especially if they have tenure, who are going to say, just get out of my office. In fact, I would love to be there. In fact, I'm not even going to open that can of worms. Okay. I'm just trying to say, you guys, you have it made right now. Please don't mess it up. It would actually be really beneficial for me. It would save me so much time if I didn't have to put that website together. I'm just saying, I want to help you out, but I'm just one more student away from giving me attitude about not going to the website from it just disappearing altogether. Okay, so please, please just think about that. Okay, that's all I want to say. Now, are there any questions, any comments you'd like to say about that? Hey, Zach, I'm glad you like the website. I'm glad you do. Okay. Do we have any other comments? Anything? This is the time. Now, I'll go ahead and say this. I've already said my piece, so I am not going to say anything else. But is there anybody in this room right now who needs the code to the website because you have never gone? Don't be afraid. I'm not going to say anything. I've already said my piece. I will not call you out. I will not say your name on tape. You just need access to the website. Is there anybody in here who fits that description? Okay, so what you're telling me is that every person in this room now has access. Okay. All right. Well, let's get going. All right. So yesterday we started talking about secant and cosecant. We talked about their graphs coming from the reciprocals. Now, what I want to go ahead and do, if you take a look at your notes, you've got 3 problems left. We got this one right here, 5B, and then these 2 on your final page. What I want to go ahead and do is work one more of these for practice, and then I want to go ahead and work one problem off your assignment. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and let you decide. Which of the 3 problems left in your notes do you think would be the most beneficial to you? Do you think it's 5B, negative 2 secant of 3x? Or we have 2 cosecant x minus pi over 2? Or we have negative secant 2x minus pi minus 1? The last one. Okay. Now, here we go. Now, this resource has different strategies for you to go ahead and graph them. I would say the way we talk about them in class, that's the way that I would go ahead and approach it. I think it's the easiest. I think it's the fastest. You can graph secant and cosecant by using their parents, applying the transformations. I think it's just going to be so much easier if you graph the reciprocal and use that. There's only one item left I need to go ahead and show you so that you'll be okay on your homework. Now, all this stuff over on the left, finding the phase shift, the vertical shift, blah, 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 I'm not interested in that unless anybody just wants to take a look at it. So let's say you were given negative secant 2x minus pi minus 1, and you need to graph it. Where should I start? There's one thing I got to do first. We got to take the reciprocal. Now, that means all I have to do is replace the trig function, nothing else. Everything else is going to remain the same. So what's the reciprocal of secant? Okay, so I'm going to say negative cosine of 2x minus pi minus 1. Now, I'm actually glad you chose this one because those graphs that have a vertical shift, that value of d, well, that is going to change one thing about your graph, and I'm going to show you when we get to the very end. Okay, so I've got my reciprocal. Raphael, what would you do now? Okay, so compound inequality. So I've got less than or equal to, less than or equal to. Now, because we're going to be looking at sine or cosine when graphing these, remember, not cotangent and tangent, we're going to put 0 as my lower, 2 pi as my upper. Okay, so what am I going to put in between? 2x minus pi. Okay, a really good indicator of what's horizontal and what's vertical, be looking for the parentheses. So 2x minus pi. Okay, well now I want to get just one x there. So what's the first thing I would do? Okay, I would probably go ahead and get rid of the pi. So whatever I do to the middle, I'm going to go ahead and do to all 3 parts. So pi less than or equal to 2x, less than or equal to 3 pi. And now I would what? Divide by 2. So this would be pi over 2 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 3 pi over 2. Now, if your lower boundary doesn't remain 0, well, then you're going to have to subtract them in order to see what your period is. So what is 3 pi over 2 minus pi over 2? Yeah, it's just 1 pi, right? So I know that the period should be pi radians. In fact, if I were to go back up here, for these, we always take 2 pi divided by b. And let's see, what is the value of b? 2. So if I were to go ahead and plug in the 2, see, I am going to get the period of pi. So that's what the formulas are for, just to kind of give you a quick way to get that information. Okay, so these values here, all right, from the compound inequality, those are going to be my x's. All right, so for the time being, I'm going to put them over to the side. What do I do now? Okay, so we'll go ahead and divide by 4 in just 1 second. Okay, now Christian's telling me the y values, so we want to look at the critical values. What are the critical values for cosine? Remember, we start with a maximum, 0, -1, 0, and 1, right? Now, looking at this function, is there anything I'm applying to them vertically? Yes, in fact, there's 2 things. What are they? Okay, I'm going to multiply each of them by -1, and then I'm going to subtract 1. Okay, so let's see here. Let's start with this one. -1 times 1 minus 1. So that would give me a -2. -1 times 0 minus 1. Okay. -1 times -1 minus 1. And then once they start to repeat, the 0 should once again give me -1, and the 1 should give me -2. Is everybody okay where I got those new 5 values? Okay. Now, these are all my y's. I got my x's, so how do I create my ordered pairs? Okay, so the lower boundary, pi over 2, is always going to be put with the very first critical. The upper boundary will always be placed with the last critical. And now, Aiden, you were saying something about this a moment ago. What do I do to fill in those 3 x's? There you go. That difference between the upper and the lower, remember we already found that to be pi? We always, always, always divide by 4. Will we always do that? Yes. Okay. So now we're just going to go ahead, starting with pi over 2, we're just going to add pi over 4 over and over again. So what's pi over 2 plus pi over 4? That's 3 pi over 4 plus pi over 4. So that's pi, 4 pi over 4. And now plus pi over 4. 5 pi over 4. And will 5 pi over 4 plus pi over 4 give me 3 pi over 2? Yes. And that's one way to check to see if you're correct. You should always end up exactly at your upper boundary. If you don't, that means we made a mistake someplace. Okay. All right, so here are 5 ordered pairs for 1 period. All right, so let's go ahead and graph these. So those are my x's, those are my y's. So the first ordered pair would be pi over 2, comma -2. So pi over 2, comma -2. Then I have 3 pi over 4, -1, pi 0, 5 pi over 4, -1, and then 3 pi over 2, -2. There we go. So that is 1 period of this graph. That's what's going to repeat over and over. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue repeating that pattern. All right, so I got 0, maximum, 0, minimum. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and draw this lightly because we're ultimately going to erase here. Now this is the graph of negative cosine 2x minus pi minus 1. But that's not what I want. I want negative secant 2x minus pi minus 1. So how does this graph help me? Okay, and there you go. And see, here's the one difference. This is the first one we've seen that has a vertical shift. Normally, up to this point, wherever this graph crosses the x-axis, where it's 0, that's where my asymptote's going to be, right? But if there's a vertical shift, then You still want to go ahead and apply it to the midline, because if there's no vertical shift, the midline is the x-axis. But if you shift it, wherever the midline is crossing that particular graph, that would still be your 0. So I'm going to have an asymptote here, here. That's the only thing we haven't been able to get to yet. Is everybody okay with that? Okay. So if there is a vertical shift, look for where the graph crosses the midline. Okay, not the x-axis. He's going to represent the x-axis. Okay. And now, how do I finish up the graph? Yeah, wherever there's a maximum or a minimum, you're going to have what looks like a parabola opening away. So there would be one here. Okay, opening down. There we go. There we go. Okay. And now I'm going to go back and erase the cosine graph. There we go. And that is negative secant 2x minus pi minus 1. There we go. I'm sorry? I would just say 2 periods is fine. Yeah. And remember, for a cosecant and the secant graph, you need both a branch that opens up and down to be your period. Okay, now here, remember we said that a period was pi units. So if I'm going from, let's say, this asymptote to this other one here, okay, that is pi units. Okay. All right, questions? Now, let's go ahead and work one off of your homework. Now, I already did one where we moved up and down. Okay, so I showed you to go ahead and look at where it crosses the midline to find your asymptotes. All right, we can go ahead and do another one of those. In fact, I think that would be 13. Let's see. 13 does that. 14 and 16 does that. Okay. Or we can go ahead and choose any of the problems you want. Now, we'll go ahead and tell you this. Take a look at these first 4. These first 4 ask you to find the locations for these particular values on your unit circle. Like, take a look at number 1. For what values of x in the interval of negative 2 pi and 2 pi does cosecant of x equals 1? So here is my circle. Well, it says on the interval between negative 2 pi and 2 pi. What is this really telling me? How many revolutions am I looking at? 2. To go to 2 pi, I need a counterclockwise rotation. In order to go to negative 2 pi, I need a counterclockwise rotation. So it's within 1 revolution both ways. Okay. So if you think about like this first one here, cosecant of x is equal to 1. Can you tell me where that would be? Remember, what does cosecant want? What's its ratio? R over y, where sine equals negative 1? Well, for this one, yes, but we want the positive one. There were 2 parts here. That's fine. So where on the unit circle would cosecant equal 1? In fact, how many locations are there? There's just 1, right? Aiden, what do you say it is? It's pi over 2, right? Okay, because the ordered pair here is 0, 1. So 1 over 1 would give me the 1, right? So see, there's only 1 location in 1 full revolution. So there's only 2 places where you'd find that, right? Okay. But if you take a look at number 2, same thing within 1 positive and 1 negative revolution, where are all the vertical asymptotes for secant? Well, how many of those are you going to have? Is it going to be more than 2? It won't be. Actually, there's going to be several asymptotes for that. So I'll tell you what I did. On numbers 1 through 4, I just went ahead and wrote out an expression using, I used K, but you guys like to use N, to go ahead and mark every one of those locations. Now, if it's something that only has a few, like number 1, if you just want to go ahead and list those locations, that's perfectly fine. For something like number 2, I would really say for that many, go ahead and give me the expression. Okay, but I went ahead and listed the expression for all 4 of those, just to kind of give you a heads up as what's coming. Okay, so what problem on the homework should we look at? -11. -2 cosecant of x plus pi over 4. Is this what everybody wants? Okay, the one who said it said yes. So how many people would be on board with that? Okay, number 11. Let's see here. Okay, and you'll notice these over to the side, like some problems, C over B, remember, is your phase shift. 2 pi over B is your period. You've also got some problems talking about the left and the right asymptote. I am really not concerned with those. You're not going to see them on the key. I'm just interested, can you graph these functions? That's what I most want. Now, if you want to go ahead and take a look at those for practice, please feel free, but I am not going to be looking at them. Okay, so 2 cosecant of x plus pi over 4. All right, if it's cosecant or secant, we're going to use the reciprocal. Okay, so what's the reciprocal of cosecant? Sine. So I'm going to go ahead and say I want to graph 2 times the sine of x plus pi over 4. Okay. All right, well, let's go ahead and do it. What should I start with? Stephanie, where would you start? Doesn't matter. We can do the inequalities. So I always want to put my value between what boundaries? Remember, it was 0, less than or equal to, and then 2 pi, right? So what's going in between them? X plus pi over 4. Perfect. Okay. So now let's simplify this. How am I going to do it? Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and subtract out. So this would be a negative pi over 4, less than or equal to x, because the opposites cancel, less than or equal to 7 pi over 4. 2 pi over 4, 2 pi minus pi over 4. There we go. Is everybody okay? All right. So now we've got that taken care of, so we'll come back to him in just a second. Now what do I want to focus on? What's that, Jack? Not the inverse. Critical values. Okay, there we go. What are the critical values for sine? Remember, we start with a 0, maximum, 0, minimum, and then back to a 0 again. Okay, what am I doing to these guys, if anything? Yep, the only other transformation outside the parentheses, I want to multiply all 5 of these by 2. So 0, 2, 0, -2, and then 0. Okay. So these are the y values I need to plot. Now let's go ahead and pair up the inequality with what I have here. The lower always goes with the first critical. So negative pi over 4. The upper always goes with the last. Okay. Now, how far a distance is it from a negative pi over 4 to a 7 pi over 4? It is 2 pi. So the distance here is 2 pi radians. But we always do what with that distance? Divide by 4. So what am I going to add over and over again? Pi over 2. Okay. Or you can add 2 pi over 4 if you want to. Okay, it's the same thing. All right. So let's see here. Negative pi over 4 plus pi over 2. That would be pi over 4 plus pi over 2. 3 pi over 4 plus pi over 2. Okay. 5 pi over 4. And let's see. Will 5 pi over 4 plus pi over 2 give me 7 pi over 4? Yes. Okay. All right. Right there, we have 5 ordered pairs for one period. Okay. So from the compound inequality, we have my x's. The criticals gave me the y's. So the first ordered pair would be negative pi over 4, comma 0. So I'm going to place him right there. then pi over 4, 2. Then we've got 3 pi over 4, 0. 5 pi over 4, negative 2. And 7 pi over 4, 0. Okay. And then we can repeat this as many times as we can. We'd have another maximum here. Then we would have a, let's see, they're always 2 units away, so it'd be right here. Then we'd have another one here, then here, and then right here. Okay. So I just repeat the pattern that I see. There we go. Now, where's my midline? It is the x-axis, so I don't worry about the fact that there was no shift here, just like on the previous problem. So everywhere it touches the x-axis, I'm going to have an asymptote. 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 And now everywhere I have a maximum or a minimum, I'm going to draw the graph opening away from that value. So maximum, I have an upward opening branch. Okay. For the minimums, I've got a downward opening branch. And now I'm going to go back and erase the sine graph. Okay. And what I have left there should be 2 cosecant of x plus pi over 4. There we go. Zach, how's that? Pretty what? Gitchy? Gucci? Okay. All right. So my math is on fleek. Y'all still say that, right? No? It died? Oh, because math is my bae. Okay. Y'all still say bae, right? What do y'all say nowadays? What should I say? This is it, Chief? Are you trying to get me to say something that's going to be bad? This is it, Chief. Why? What's that?
It's just like, that's it, you know? Like, that's right.
Like this is good?
Yeah, or you can say, this ain't it, Chief. And it's bad. That's it.
Okay.
So, like, if somebody comes with you and, like, give you the wrong answer, be like, that ain't it, Chief.
Okay. Okay. All right. I just want to make sure because in this woke culture, the environment we have, if I go ahead and say in another class, that this is it, Chief. So I won't have like a Native American saying racist, or anything. Okay. Because I don't want to do that. Okay. All right. So there we go. What I'm going to go ahead and ask you to do now is go ahead and take that survey. I don't believe it'll take you that long. So on your Chromebooks, or if you're on your own laptop, or even if you want to try this on your phone, if you were to go to the website, okay, which we all have access to at this point. All right, the very first link, the newest posting that I put in, will take you to this 2018 survey. I believe it's about the cafeteria. Okay, so just go ahead and answer honestly. I believe it's anonymous. Just if you don't like the food, let them know. If you do like the food, let them know. Okay. All right. There you go. That is the survey. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and shut